Well, we've heard Alex Salmond dismiss what he calls the so-called vow made by the UK's three main party leaders to give Scotland more powers if it votes to stay in the UK. But what do these vows mean for the other nations of the Union? Ed Conway is here with me. And Ed, we had David Cameron yesterday talking about a messy divorce. Now we've got the three Westminster leaders talking about a vow. What is it?
Yeah, and it's worth just kind of going through some of the detail of what particularly they have talked about. I mean, one of those things, NHS funding, that will be decided in Scotland. This is one of the kind of headline-grabbing notions. But beyond that, there was also a lot of talk about the Barnett formula and the fact that that's going to remain in place.
I'm hoping you can explain the Barnett formula for us, Ed.
Yeah, I will. I mean, disappointingly, it's not about haircuts. This is actually about funding for different parts of the UK and basically about how much public spending goes into different regions. I can show you, just looking at all of these different regions. These figures are going to just show you how much is spent. We'll go into England. How much is spent in terms of public spending on each different region per head. So each person out of 53 in England gets £8,529 worth of public spending on the NHS, on hospitals, on education, on public services and things like that. Look at that number. It's considerably bigger when you go over towards Wales. You can see 9,709, smaller population, but a higher figure per head. Up in Northern Ireland, again, a higher figure too, 10,876 per head. Go over to Scotland, it's over 10,000, a bit less than Northern Ireland, but higher than elsewhere in the UK, importantly, higher than down in England.
Yeah, is that fair?
Well, I mean, this is the question a lot of people are asking themselves, because you've got this disparity between Scotland on the one hand and England on the other.
And even Lord Barnett has said it's not fair anymore.
And even Lord Barnett himself has come out and said that he's not sure that this is the right way to be doing things, so why continue with it? Well, let's just kind of look at that kind of the disparity between Scotland and the rest. And this just shows you, I want to show you here. This is how much more is spent on public services in Scotland versus the UK as a whole. £1,256 per head spent on things like the NHS, spent on different public services. But that is balanced out to some degree because Scotland does make a bit more in taxes than the rest of the UK. It's £789 worth in taxes. So the actual subsidy is considerably smaller than it looks from those overall figures that we've just taken a look at. And in fact, some years, that's actually been higher taxes.
So where's that higher tax revenue coming from?
Well, that is North Sea oil. And, you know, we've been talking about this time and time again. North Sea oil is at the centre of so many of these sums. And actually, a few years ago, when North Sea oil revenues were quite high, Scotland was actually net subsidising the rest of the UK. So this is why everything hinges on whether Scotland, or a lot hinges on whether Scotland is able to make up that money. Otherwise, it's going to have to actually borrow more.
What else is being vowed?
Well, I mean, there's another kind of slightly catch-all vow, which is there are going to be new extensive powers that are going to come into force on the 19th. But we don't really have all that much in the way of detail about that. So it's primarily these kind of slightly vague promises on both sides.
And what about the polls? We've talked a lot about the polling and how how the campaign is affecting the way people might vote in Scotland. What about the rest of the UK and how they're viewing independence?
Because we did hear from that pollster at TNS about this poll looking not just, as you mentioned, not just at what Scotland thinks, but at the rest of the UK. And this is what basically everyone, so this is not Scotland, this is the rest of the UK, and how they would have answered the question, do you want Scotland to be an independent country? This is back last year. So last year, 53% no, 22% yes. Look at what's happened just in this recent poll. 63% for no and 18% for yes. You can see a fall there.
As it gets closer, people are saying...
As it gets closer, people are basically saying, as all of the numbers come and as it looks more and more possible, a lot of people are saying, really, don't go, don't leave us.
Ed Conway, thanks very much indeed.